Welcome to the Wealth Builders Show. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore, and I'm excited today because I'm here with one of my great friends who loves to educate and help people in the community with their finances. I am, of course, talking about the one, the only Anthony Cangemi from Crescent City Retirement Group. Anthony, how are you doing today?
Tony, I'm doing great. I thought you were going to say, and the crowd goes wild.
Well, the crowd always goes wild with you, Anthony, and I just I wasn't quite ready for that, but I should have been, right? I mean, there
it is.
there it is. That's what Anthony's used to hearing when he's introduced.
That's my moment of glory there. All right. We probably should stick to our day jobs.
Yeah, I suppose so. Well, Anthony, I know that you've been really busy taking care of your clients, helping people with their investments, helping people with their retirement planning, their retirement income planning, and the list really goes on and on. But I'm excited because today we're going to talk about, and I love this word, you don't hear it often enough, savvy generational planning.
Yeah.
And you guys have a great 2-page PDF that really digs into this, and we're going to expound on that. Yes, savvy generational planning. It is fantastic. We're going to go over some of the common concerns and goals that people have. That's really good. But before we do, how have you been? Are you keeping busy? I know you guys are busy at the office. What have you been doing? Have you been able to get out and do anything this summer? Take advantage?
You know, Tony, just this past weekend, I had 3 events with some clients of mine that, some milestones. One, all clients, Tony, 90 plus.
Wow.
So I attended. The first event was but I loved him. He was like a dad to me. Passed away, Mr. Martin, and he had been with me for 25 years. I just loved him, and then so of course that was not. But we're talking about legacy and estate planning. So I mean, and it was just
in his 90s.
Oh, he was 90. He was
lived
90.
a good full life. And
he did. A beautiful man.
Yeah.
Then on this past Friday, Miss Catherine at our office in Houma celebrated her 96th birthday.
Excellent.
And we had a little birthday gathering, and we had a lot of clients come in that day, and she was like the belle of the ball. I mean, Miss Catherine, we had a great, great time. She's a client, but she's also a close friend. She's 96. And then on Saturday, I had a little birthday gathering at a seafood restaurant here with Mr. Horace, who is 92, who's been with me for about 25 years. So, honestly, it's just been a blessing these last 3 or 4 or 5 days of just, being with some of my older clients. And I tell you, I even told my staff this. I'd sent them some pictures, and some were with me and some weren't. But that's the generation. These folks, Tony, are in that generation of, integrity, being very candid. A handshake meant everything. If your word was your bond. I don't know. I got so much from my older clients that have been with me a long time, but now in their late 80s and early 90s. And but I'll tell you that generation, to me, has been such a blessing for me to be exposed to their values and their beliefs. And it's just a very, very, it's a treasure to know these people.
Yeah. Well, and I know you become like family with the clients and the people you work with, you and your team there. It's one big family. And that's what I've noticed. Whenever I come to one of your events, and you do a lot of different events, you have these coffee events, you have educational workshops and seminars, and then you do things with your clients and for your clients. And it really is, that's the difference. It's a family atmosphere, family approach. And that really leads into what we're talking about today, because you make sure the people you work with also, you talk with them a lot about generational planning. And they say it's basically, it's, what do they call it? The great inheritance, all this money transferring, the great wealth transfer,
Yep.
actually,
Yep.
of the great wealth transfer from the baby boomers to their kids to the
Yep.
Gen Xers. And
Yep.
it's the largest wealth transfer that's going to happen in US history.
Yep.
And that's happening now.
Yep.
When people reach their 90s, in the hundreds, people are living longer, but you want to make sure you have a plan in place for that wealth transfer so you don't leave your family in a bad situation, right?
Absolutely, Tony. I mean, transferring your wealth, legacy planning, and it's not just wealth; it's also your legacy, your attitudes about life, and the things that you consider to your values. So, when we think of legacy planning or generational planning, yes, it's obviously wealth, financial accounts, land, property, your estate, but it also encompasses, as you well know, with the generational vault and so many things that Gradient has. It's not just about that. It's also just about your values and your legacy and what
Yeah.
you want to leave to your family,
Right.
kids, grandkids, great grandkids. And you're right. If it's not done properly, and you haven't put in some thought into it and have the appropriate documentation, then what could have been a real, honorable and glorious time for the family to really, where you transfer, your assets and your legacy and the things that you want to, continue and instill in your family. It could be a mess. I mean, it could end up being a real mess
Yeah.
if things aren't set up properly.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, people have those concerns. You want to make sure your surviving spouse is taken care of. You want to make sure, it's fair to your children and that
Yep.
they're not left with a mess.
Right.
Especially if you have special needs family that you're
Yep.
going to be leaving behind. Plus, there's a tax part of this too when you're talking about creating a legacy or leaving things. Maybe you have business succession if
Yep.
you run your own business. So these are all huge, right? So you've laid out, Anthony, I love what you've done. You've laid out a plan, a 6-part plan. So let's talk about the first step of that plan. And I know that's planning for incapacity. What does that mean?
So it allows you to appoint a person to step in and make healthcare, financial decisions on your behalf should you become unable to do so. So, Tony, durable, what we call power of attorney for financial and medical directives. So if you are unable to act in your own stead and you're unable to make decisions for yourself, whether it be financial decisions or medical decisions, who is that person, in your life that would be there, right, for you? And I would say your power of attorney for those medical and financial directives, if you ask yourself, well, who is that person, who would be the best person, I think the short answer is, if you found yourself in that situation where maybe you were just, you were involved in an accident or some health issue, and the person or persons that would be there by your side, okay, whoever that is in your life, that's the person,
Yeah.
right? That's the person that should be able to make those decisions, or that you would need for them to make those decisions for you, whether it be medical or financial. The issue is, if they don't have the proper documentation, right, you have just tied their hands.
Yeah.
They want to help, but they can't help. I've been in situations, Tony, where the couple was married over 60 years and didn't have a power of attorney to handle medical and financial directives. And we're trying to get the custodian to, answer some critical questions about beneficiary designations that we were trying to address. And it was in the wife's name. The husband's sitting right next to her over the phone, and they wouldn't talk to us or him
Oh.
because she was not able to um validate the call, because she wasn't able to understand the questions, all the security
Oh.
questions. I mean, it was a mess. And they
Yeah.
had been married 60 years. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, if you don't have the proper documentation, which is a power of attorney, durable power of attorney for medical and financial directives for that person that would be there for you,
Yeah.
and they don't have that, we don't have that document, you have just, tied
Wow.
their hands, and they can't help.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating.
Yeah, what a mess. Yeah, and you've seen this happen, and you do everything you
Yes.
can to try to help people. People put off this type of planning. They don't wanna communicate with family about it. They don't wanna think about it. Nobody wants
Right.
to think about their own demise, and it's awkward to talk to your spouse or your family perhaps about it, or your children. But, if we have children of elderly people, they need to talk to them, get them to talk about it, and make sure they have a plan in place. And that can be hard too. So for our listeners and viewers out there, just make it easier on each other. Nobody's, it's not that, it should be all about money, but you have to have these types of plans in place. You
Yep.
need to appoint someone with the healthcare directive, the power of attorney for healthcare, the power of attorney for finance.
Yep.
And then what's number two? It's organizing your records, right?
Yeah, a thoughtful, comprehensive way to organize your accounts, gather important papers, and put your affairs in order. So, Tony, with the generational vault, as you know, and these financial overviews, look at that as just like an inventory. Your real estate, your bank accounts, your investment accounts, your annuities, your anything really of value, maybe a guns collection or a stamp
Yeah.
collection, or your wedding ring, anything of value, Tony, and then certainly anything with a title, even an automobile or a boat. You want a place where all of your assets are listed. And that's what we're saying about organizing your records. You want a very, easy place for somebody, your family, to go to and say, here's a list of all of my mom or all of my dad or all of my spouse's information. Even pensions. You might have a pension that you're getting from a company that you worked for. Well, if you pass away, is there a survivor benefit? Well, if we have that pension information, then we're able to help. We're able to help the spouse. We're able to reach out to the pension company, maybe a life insurance policies you have. If all of this is in one place, then it is so much more efficient and effective for someone to help, or, to make sure that nothing is missed, Tony. And so organizing your records. And, of course, we have our financial overview. There's the generational vault. Today, let's face it, with technology and with online platforms, you're able to have things organized so well.
Yeah.
And what a gift that is, if something were to happen to you and your kids or somebody can go and say, wow, like a vault with all of your important papers, your important documents, and all of your assets are listed. So it's not just trying to piece together a puzzle with pieces spread all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And the problem is people usually have a 1,000-piece puzzle. It's all scattered, and they don't know what the full picture looks like. You can't put together the 1,000-piece picture. The most important piece of any puzzle is the box lid, and that's where you come in.
Yep.
Anthony, you and your team there are the box lid. You're going to be able to show them the full picture so that puzzle can come together. Now, I think that's good. Organize your records. The next big one is beneficiary designations, right?
Yeah, it is, Tony, because, there's really two ways that assets transfer to your heirs. One is through your will or through succession. We call it succession in Louisiana. Most states call it probate. But if I have a boat in my name and I pass away and I want to leave it to my son, that's a title transfer to my son. Well, in my will, if my will says, hey, my boat goes to my son, Anthony, then when they do the succession, they are simply going to transfer the boat into his name, right? Because I'm leaving it through the will, right? I'm leaving it through succession. A beneficiary designation avoids succession and probate. It goes directly to those designated beneficiaries. So an example of that, Tony, would be like retirement accounts, like your IRA, your Roth IRA, 401ks, life insurance, annuities, a trust. These are vehicles that have designated beneficiaries. And it's a powerful tool because those assets, regardless of what my will might say, if I have an asset that has a designated beneficiary, my will could say whatever it wants to say, but that particular asset is going to that designated beneficiary, and it avoids the succession process or the probate process. So again, beneficiary designations are critical to have, but you have to make sure the beneficiary forms are set up correctly, and they have to be reviewed. They should be reviewed. And there's many horror stories about not having the right beneficiary set up, or I have one myself where it wasn't that long ago where I met a lady who had gotten divorced years ago, and the man got remarried, and he changed his will and everything, but he got the thrift savings plan. She got the house. It was an amicable divorce, no harm, no foul. But then he dies years later. Well, he failed to change the beneficiary on his thrift savings. So his ex-wife, he was married and left everything to the new wife. But when he died, he didn't change the beneficiary designation on retirement account, and it ended up going to the ex-wife. And that was the lady I was talking to, and she had a smile, a grin from ear to ear. And I said, wow, so you ended up with when he passed, you ended up with the retirement account? And she said, I sure did. And I said, well, what did the new wife have to say? And she said, I have no idea. I never spoke to her about it.
Well, yeah. But beneficiary,
it's critical. It's critical.
Well, and I think it's important you pointed that out, that beneficiary designations take precedent over a will, a trust, or anything else. It's always the beneficiary designation. That's went all the way to the Supreme Court. beneficiary designations trump
Trump
anything else.
everything.
Yeah. So if you have somebody, an ex-spouse written in there and you forgot to change it, or somebody that passed away, that's automatically going to go to probate if it's somebody that isn't still living or something like that.
Right.
And you don't have, you got to have contingent beneficiaries. That's why.
Yes.
So you need beneficiaries, you need contingent, and they have to be updated, is what you're
Yes.
saying. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, the next big one is to formalize all of this. Have an estate plan and make it legal, right? You have to have the documents properly executed, all that.
Yeah, so, having the appropriate will, and of course, in Louisiana, we're under this Napoleonic code, and so
Yeah.
having a Louisiana lawyer and having a good will, your living will, your
Yeah.
durable power of attorney, these are the estate planning documents that we just simply recommend to any and everybody. Your last will and testament. And, actually, one of our attorneys years ago, he used to make the point that these documents really kind of follow an order. Typically your durable power of attorney, somebody has not passed away, right? So this
Right.
is, hey, I'm incapacitated, I need support, I need help. That's where your power of attorney comes in. Your living will, that's the, I'm on life support. You remember this woman, Mary Shivo, years ago
Oh,
in
yeah.
Florida, and nobody knew what her, wishes were, and they had some discrepancy with the family. So they ended up depleting all of their health care benefits and going into their savings and investments because she was on life support and just a machine keeping her alive. No living will. And then the last will and testament, of course, somebody passes away, then that's the, ultimate transfer of assets. But those three documents, the power of attorney, the living will, last will and testament, and then, of course, the beneficiary designations and making sure that those beneficiary forms are filled out, updated, and filled out correctly.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the whole piece
Yeah.
of it, unless I say it's the whole piece, unless there's a need for a trust or a special needs situation, as you mentioned earlier. I'll give you a quick example of a trust that's people may not think about, but if you have any wishes where you really want to kind of control how things are going to go. I had a client who had a camp, a beautiful camp on Grand Isle, and he's leaving the camp to his family, but he doesn't want the camp sold. He wants them to maintain it. He wants them to
Sure.
use it. He wants the grandkids and the great grandkids, but he needs a trust for that. He
Yeah.
needs to put the camp in the trust, and he's got instructions as to how he wants things managed. So not everybody needs a trust, but there are circumstances, and you mentioned special needs earlier. Maybe somebody has a spendthrift child or grandchild. They say, hey, I want to leave this to my granddaughter, but she's not old enough, or I want her to have so much when she turns 21 or 25, or she can take out money at 30. You see, when you have situations like that where you're trying to, have some instructions as to how things are going to go, well, then a trust certainly is another document that you can simply have inside of your will. So, Tony, it's not really overly complicated. It's just really knowing what having a good inventory of everything. That's why we said organize the records, have a good inventory, and then a conversation about, hey, how do I want things to go? Who do I want to receive what? How do I want them to receive it? And it's really just that straightforward. And,
Yeah.
one of the things that I've noticed about people that, kind of put the button up their their estate and legacy plan is it's really psychologically, it's just a burden lifted off of them. It's
Oh,
like, oh, I
yeah.
got all this taken care of, now I can enjoy my life, enjoy my retirement, and God forbid, when God calls me home, I'm not leaving a bunch of unanswered questions and then
Problems.
family. Oh, how many families, to our listening audience right now today, who do you know that the family is not talking to each other,
Right.
or
Yeah.
somebody's mad at
That
somebody
happened
else?
to my dad's
I
family
mean,
when my grandpa passed away.
it's an
Yeah.
epidemic. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, it's in all of our families,
Yeah.
because they just didn't have,
The communication, it's about communication and having that plan in place ahead
that's
of
it.
time and organizing all of this, everything you talked about, the wills, the trust, the beneficiary designations,
Yeah.
formalizing that estate plan, and communicating it and getting it all in place, the powers of attorney, and appointing somebody as an executor. I
Yeah.
just think these are key, and communicate it with the whole family though, and then
Yeah.
you'll avoid those issues.
Absolutely, Tony. You really do. And there's no ambiguity, there's
Right.
it's all clear. Okay,
Yes.
this is what dad wanted, this is what
Yeah.
mom wanted, versus the conflicts that inevitably
Yeah.
are gonna come about.
No, I think dad wanted me to have that, or I think we
Yeah.
should
Oh
have done this,
yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
you
really
don't.
it's really a shame is what it is.
Right, and plus a lot of people say, "I'm leaving my, what my spouse and kids really set up because I've got this money set aside," and what they don't realize is if they don't have their estate planning done properly, that money will be eaten up by court fees, attorney fees, it'll be locked up, it could be eaten up by taxes, so it has to be part of your overall retirement plan, your financial plan, and your investment plan, and that's where you come in and you work alongside estate planning attorneys. So before we go, let our listeners know, Anthony, how they can get a hold of you and the team there at Crescent City to get all this in place.
Absolutely. So just give our office a call, 504-828-2171. Mention that you heard Tony and I talk about the savvy generational planning on our show today, or simply go to our website at www.crescentcityretirement.com, and we can certainly get you on your way to a savvy generational plan.
Awesome. Well, great show today, Anthony. Listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Wealth Builders with our host, Anthony Cangemi.